techniques of gardening that has worked very well for us.
Yeah, so one of them, we'll just jump right in here. One of them is using cornmeal for tomatoes. When we say this, we want to specify whole grain cornmeal. And you want to make sure it's yellow. I don't know how common white cornmeal is, but yellow whole grain cornmeal. And this helps with early blight, because early blight is caused by a fungus. There's many things in your soil, good and bad. One of them is fungus, which originates from contaminated soil, infected plant debris, infected seeds, or volunteer plants from previous seasons. The fungus also will thrive in warm, wet conditions, spreading to the new plants via wind, watering, splashing water, etc. So what you want to do is, once you plant your tomato, before you put mulch over it, not the tomato.
Once you plant your tomato, you want to take a handful of the yellow whole grain cornmeal and dress it, cascade it around, sprinkle it around the plant, and then go ahead and water it in. That whole grain yellow cornmeal has a beneficial fungus, or a beneficial bacteria in it that fights the fungus that's in your soil, and this will help decrease the fungus, the early blight from progressing up the plant and having a dead plant by the end of the year. Now, by doing this, you're going to increase your likelihood of reduction by about 80%. Now, once you apply it once, you don't have to go and reapply it again in X amount of time period during that growing season. Put it around the base of the plant. You go ahead and mulch with your chemical-free, seed-free grass clippings, your leaves, your straw, whatever you have as mulch. And then progressively through the season, you want to trim the lower 6 to 8 inches of leaves of that tomato plant from ground level up to stalk, and then anything that is cascading off the canopy that could potentially have the splash up. And by doing a combination in all of these, you're going to reduce that early blight, that discoloration, that yellowing, dead-looking progression of leaves working up the plant, and by the end of the season you got fruit hanging there, but you got no leaves for that plant to be sustainable with.
Right, and again, you want to make sure it's whole grain. So using bird feeders in the garden is another great technique. One, because they can help pollinate and move certain birds, not all of them, but birds can help pollinate certain plants.
By putting the bird seed in, you're bringing the birds in and encouraging them to eat the bird seed, and then they will also be able to identify insects that are on the plants, the tomato hornworm, bugs, insects in which they will go and feast on.
Right, and so they can. When you do this, you want to make sure the bird feeders are at plant level, essentially, or close to.
Well, so you can have a bird feeder above, and as they're eating, they can look down and see this.
But you don't want it like far away from the garden. You want it near the garden.
We have ours in the garden itself.
The garden.
If you don't have bird feeders, or you don't want to invest into bird feeders, a second option is a stake, a 1x1, a 2x2, 4 foot tall in the ground, enough that it's sturdy, and screw a tuna can on that post, and you can put bird feed on that as well, bird seed in that. Now, the disadvantage to that particular application, every time it rains, you're going to have to dig that old seed out because it's going to get all mucky and put new seed in. But it is a way into incorporating that bird feeder in specific locations if you're trying to get them in around your tomatoes, or specific areas where the bird feeder may be a little more farther away because it's a permanent fixture of the landscape. With these posts on tuna cans, you can maneuver those anywhere you want.
Exactly. So that's bringing birds into your garden. No dig potatoes. This seems probably a little bit too easy, or maybe a little far-fetched. So by doing no dig potatoes, you simply find where you want to put your potatoes, and then you put once you just kind of nestle them into the soil. You're going to kind of disturb the soil a little bit, but not a lot.
A couple of inches on top, and then as you can either chit your potatoes, get the eyes on them, or you can plant them whole, and you're just going to, again, put the eyes upward, nestle them in. You can space them pretty tight together. And then your soil is going to be mulch, feet of leaves, straw, chemical seed-free grass clipping, combination of all these. You're going to put about a foot and a half layer of material on top of your potatoes. And then you're going to water. You water your potatoes in first, then you put your mulch. And really, a lot of the times, you don't have to water beyond that. What occurs is the potato, that tuber, is going to develop roots. That's the eye. And then the roots are going to find that soil, which you loosened up, and nestle the potato in. And it's going to start growing upward. It's going to grow through your leaf debris, your straw, your grass clippings, all of those things. And as the season goes, you can add more, just like you'd be hilling a row of potatoes. And you'll see these plants flourish very well above your mulch level. And then just like if you're growing them in a trench method, when the potatoes die off 90, 110, 120 days, you go in there and simply rake back that material, and all of your tubers in which you're going to harvest is setting on top of that soil bed underneath all that debris of mulch that you've put in. It works really, really well, and it's so easy to do such. And if you have dense soil, this is a way that will help produce more potatoes.
Right. So it's a good little tactic for growing potatoes. Then the next one is another good technique that works for us is cutting out the squash vine borer larva to allow squash to grow. So if you're not familiar with the squash vine borer, this is a small moth, and what it does is it takes its larva and it lays it
burrows it into the stem.
Burrows into the stem of the squash. Everything but butternut. Yep,
butternut, you're right. Yep.
Everything but butternut squash, and this always happens like kind of earlier in the season, like June-ish, late June-ish. So what it does is it burrows their larva deep into the stem on the lower part. So what will happen is you will see that your zucchini or other squash looks like it needs to be watered. You'll water it, and then because it'll look kind of droopy and kind of sad, whatever. And then nothing will happen, and it turns out that these larvae are eating the inside of the stem and not allowing the plants to thrive.
So once you've got your plants developed and they're growing, you want to be very aware at the base. Now, some people will say you put aluminum foil around it, you put netting on it. None of that has worked for us, being real with you. The only thing that has successfully worked for us is as the plant is growing. This is your spaghetti squash. This is your pumpkins. This is your green zucchini, your black beauty zucchini, your crookneck zucchini. Look at the base from the ground level up, 3 or 4 inches. If they are infected, you are going to see what is called honeydew, or a substance that looks like it's coming out of the base, like somebody drilled a hole and sawdust is coming out of that hole. That's an indication that this larva has been put inside of the stem. So you're going to find where that insertion is, take a knife, a very sharp razor blade, and slit up 3 inches and down 2 inches, about a 5-inch slit, and simply very gently open up that stalk, and you're going to see these worms or little grub looking like things, and you're going to extract them. If you're squirrely, this is not the thing for you, but this is what's going to save your crop. Once you've extracted all of them, you can let that plant be. As long as you don't sever it all the way around, you just make the slit and open it up. If you go to our parent website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, and click on the search bar and type in squash vine borer, we've got in-depth videos on how to do this. And it's going to be fine. It's not going to hurt the plant any more than what it was going to die before. So then the next day or 2 days later, you want to go back to that plant and slice it just slightly, like an inch more up the stalk, and see if there's any more larvae that has migrated down. And most of the time, it's not. And sometimes you got 3, 4, 5 larvae in this stem. But again, you're going to save your crop. So those are just some of the different techniques in which we have done that has worked very well. And a bonus one here is we buy seeds and we buy seedlings. We buy seedlings and we go to our garden center when we need to.
Yeah, sometimes we do need to buy seedlings, and it happens. We do try to start a number of seedlings in our home. In our grow area, but sometimes you do need to purchase seedlings, or it's just easier. Like sometimes you just don't want to start the
And you
seeds.
have a plant fail.
Yeah, and you have a plant fail. Or sometimes it's a different variety that maybe you don't have the seeds for. There's a lot of different options, but buying seedlings, there's no shame in it, and it's a really great technique.